r/Nosleep. Posted by Reddit user G_A93. The grass is always greener on the other side. My scumbag father learned that a little too late. Things weren't really the same when my folks split up. The halls of the house were an empty remnant of what used to be. Our house used to be filled with so much joy, so much laughter. Mom, Dad, and my two older brothers, Travis and Tommy, were twins. But we all got along really well. We were only 2 years apart in age. I can remember playing Aliens vs. Spacemen with them, riding our bikes, tackle ball out in the front yard till the streetlights came on. Those times were so much more simpler. I guess where this story takes a turn is when my dad became very short with us all, around the time I turned 13. He was notably more into his work, accounting for a large firm in New York. He'd come home late, always in a pissy mood. Something about his energy was off, though. He didn't feel like my dad. It felt evil. At this point in life, whenever he'd walk into the room, I got this sickly feeling in my gut, like I had to vomit, but had nothing to bring up. My head would pound, eyes begin to water, not like crying, more like a reaction to the toxic air around me. Eventually, it came to a head when I was 14. Trav and Tom were 16. Tommy came home from a party with some friends. At this point, Tom had a job at a local pizzeria and was maintaining a school schedule. He was the one who hated being home the most. When he walked in, Dad berated him for coming home and waking him up. Kept going on and on about how much of a fuck-up Tom was making himself out to be. When I heard the arguing, I got a knot in my stomach like none other before. I could feel the walls vibrating from the constant roaring of the two men. Tom, being a bit of a rebel, pushed past my dad and came into the room to grab some things. He looked at me. You know what? Hey, listen, kid. Fuck that old man. He's full of shit. He has no one's best interest in his mind but his own. He's the fuck up. I know Mom will wise up one of these days and leave his ass. Just be strong, bud. I can't take it here much longer. I'll catch a charge living here. He paused for a moment. Theo, life will only get better. Don't sweat nothing, okay, little bro? With that, he put his forehead on mine and walked out to the hall, continuing the insult contest with Dad. Trav got home just in time to see the quote-unquote thrilling finale. Dad laying a smack across Tom's face. And Trav held back Tom and walked him out. And my mother did what she always did. Cry and sit in her room, waiting for him to get done teeing off on all of us. And this night, though, everything, and I mean everything, changed. Tom got into a car crash. He was hospitalized for severe brain trauma, a broken neck, internal bleeding. Apparently, out of anger, he'd been driving a bit recklessly, swerving into another car and causing a pretty ugly scene. From that day forward, I never got a sickly feeling. My father ended his tirades and began to work on all his relationships in the house, but it was too late. My mother left him and filed for divorce. It was an oddly quick process. From Tommy's accident to us living with Ma and our Aunt Sally in Brooklyn, it only took a week or so. And Trav and I were so disheartened about everything, they gave Tom a 10% chance at survival. My mom didn't give up. And 2 weeks after the crash, I had a paranormal experience like no other. At this point, my mom and dad were on speaking terms. Dad convinced her to let me and Trav stay with him for the weekend. And to be honest, I was done as well. Being the youngest, I never voiced my opinions. I felt like maybe there was no need to, or I wasn't going to be heard, so why bother? He took us out for a slice, then to watch a ball game. He really couldn't understand that his demeanor towards us the last year or so really strained our relationship, and that a couple of pizzas and a ball game weren't exactly going to salvage anything. There needed to be some real work done, and that was until when we got back to his place, my dad really gave us the nastiest hit he'd ever dealt. And we walk in, and there's a woman in the kitchen. "Who are you?" I ask, half expecting I'd stumbled into the wrong house. "Oh, sweetie, you must be Theo. Your father's told me so much about you. And Travi. Oh my God. I can't believe you guys are here." My heart dropped, realizing who this woman was. "Hey boys, this is Rosie. We've been hanging around each other and... Does she live here?" Trav asked, rather loudly. "Well, now let me Fuck you!" Trav exploded, running out of the front. I almost didn't know what to do, as my dad ran after him. I did the only thing I could: run into my room and lay on my bottom bunk. As I laid there, I became more enraged. How could he do this to us? How could he do this to our mother? Rosie living here after a few weeks? I understand now why he became so involved at work. I guess the pay raise was a big tit bimbo, 15 years younger than him. He'd been fucking around on my poor mother. And in the midst of Tom in the hospital and the decline of his family, he thought this was the proper time to introduce us to this whore? I laid with tears in my eyes until I gradually drifted to sleep. I wanted nothing more than to go back with Mom and never speak to this asshole again. I woke up around 3:30 a.m. I rubbed my eyes a bit while shifting in my bed. Hey, Theo, you awake?" I heard Trav call from a top bunk. "Hey, Trav. Guess that fucking dick convinced you to stay. You holding up alright?" "Yeah. Hey, you think Dad was fucking this broad the whole time? You know, the whole time he was being a dick to us?" How else do you explain a woman that excited to see some 40-year-old's kids, knowing damn well he was fucking married? Yeah, I guess you're right. Hey Theo. Trav started. "Yeah? You think Dad... you think he loves her? He wants to have babies with her?" This struck me as odd, though the scandal did come as a shock, and quite recently. Trav wasn't one to dive into the trauma right away. "I don't know, man. You think he tells her his darkest secrets, and what he's afraid of, what he cries about?" I sat up, realizing the sinister tone in his voice. "Trav? You okay, bro?" Yeah, I just thought of something funny, Trav said, with the creepiest of tones. And just then, I noticed I had a voicemail on my cell from a number I didn't recognize. "Theo. Hey, it's Trev. Listen, I took a cab back to Aunt Sally's after that blow-up with Dad. I told Mom all about the bullshit that went down. She understands. Called Dad. If you want us to come get you, call back, okay? I love you, brother. My whole body froze at this point. My stomach, knotting with that oh-so-familiar pain. The one that used to transpire when my dad would be going off on one of his tirades. Suddenly, the darkness of the room became darker than I could have imagined. The door seemed further than I ever remembered. Who the fuck was sitting on top of Travis's bed?
Don't worry, little brother.
The voice called from above, voice becoming distorted, sounding more demonic than human at this point.
It will all be over soon.
I could no longer speak. Hot air filled the space around me, as if my whole nervous system shut down. I fell backwards, lying face up, only able to move my eyes. And that thing jumped down from atop Travis's bed. I could almost feel a heat radiating from it. I focused up at the bunk, not wanting to look. As if to taunt me, the thing took a bended knee and stared daggers into the side of my head. I could feel the tears streaming down the side of my cheeks, the feeling of death returning to the pit of my stomach, looming over me literally at this point.
Look at me,
the thing demanded. As if against my will, I looked. And there he stood. I couldn't believe it. Tommy? I managed to squeak out, still unable to move. You will only get better from here, kid. I promise. Don't sweat nothing, kid. Hey, watch over Travie for me, okay? He's older, but a bit of a knucklehead. With that, he stood up, morphing into something that definitely didn't look like Tommy. As he hit the door, he looked back at me, skin now as black as the dark hall, only showing a wicked grin and human eyes of red. Tommy, or it, strolled back, now looking more horrifying by the minute. He did a simple gesture that solidified who this actually was. He rested his forehead on top of mine. Even looking into those horrifying eyes, I knew it was Tommy. As if my body could no longer react, I fainted. I only awoke due to the screams of a woman. Rosie. I got up and walked out to the living room, where, ironically, my father sat upright in his favorite recliner, ice cold. No blood, no wounds, just dead. The only thing off about him was the look of pure terror on his face. After all the commotion and questioning from the police, I was let go to my mother's care. Rosie moved out, and the cause of death was labeled as stress cardiomyopathy, death by scare. I learned even later in that day that Tommy didn't make it. It's odd. I feel like I already knew that was coming, but I still cried, sorrow pouring out of me for my fallen brother, a casualty in my father's sinful nature. It was a devastating blow to us all. We buried father and son on the same day, with no one to claim the home as home anymore. My mother inherited it, sold it, and found herself out in Brooklyn, close to her sister. I'm not a religious man. I can't tell you for sure what that thing was. Only that his name was Tommy. He was my brother. He was our savior. You know, thinking about it now, when we got the death certificate for Tommy, his time of death was 0328.